The moment I saw my husband's hand slide possessively across another woman's waist in my own doorway, I knew my marriage was already dead. I just hadn't been invited to the funeral. It was Christmas Eve, and I'd been cooking since dawn. My feet ached in a way that only a full day standing on kitchen tile can produce. There was ham grease under my fingernails despite 3 washings, and a burn mark on my forearm from wrestling my grandmother's cast iron skillet. But the house, God, the house looked beautiful. Warm light spilled from every window. The tree we decorated as a family just 2 weeks ago glittered in the corner, my daughter's handmade ornaments hanging at eye level, where she'd insisted they go. The dining table was set with my mother's china, the pieces I only brought out twice a year. Each plate positioned with the kind of care that comes from wanting everything to be perfect. I'd made honey-glazed ham with pineapple and cloves, macaroni and cheese from my grandmother's recipe, the one that required an hour of stirring and 3 different cheeses, collard greens slow-cooked with smoked turkey, candied yams with the burnt marshmallow top that Marcus used to steal bites of before dinner, cornbread, dinner rolls, green bean casserole, peach cobbler cooling on the counter, filling the whole house with the smell of cinnamon and butter and brown sugar. This was supposed to be our year. After 7 years of marriage, after the rough patches and the arguments about money, and the nights he came home too late to say goodnight to our daughter, this was supposed to be when we turned it around, when we remembered why we fell in love in the first place. I was basting the ham one final time when I heard his key in the lock. Early. He was home early. My heart actually lifted. "Baby," his voice carried down the hallway, warm and intimate in a way I hadn't heard in months. "You're gonna love her cooking. She really went all out tonight." Her, P. They appeared in the kitchen doorway like an apparition from my worst nightmare. P. Marcus wore the burgundy cashmere sweater I'd saved for 3 months to buy him last Christmas. It brought out the warmth in his brown skin, made his eyes look softer. I'd loved seeing him in it. Now it felt like he'd weaponized my own gift against me. But it was her I couldn't stop staring at. She was stunning. There was no other word for it. Tall, at least 5'10", even before the heels that probably cost more than my car payment. Willowy in a way I hadn't been since before pregnancy. Wearing a cream-colored dress that hugged curves I no longer possessed. Her locks were perfectly maintained, swept up in some kind of elegant twist that probably required a professional. Her skin glowed with that dewy finish I'd only ever seen in magazine ads, and her makeup was flawless, subtle but deliberate. The kind that takes skill and money and time I hadn't had in 7 years. She was maybe 25, 26 at most. I was 33 and suddenly felt ancient. "Babe," Marcus said to me. "Babe, not baby," I noticed with a sick twist in my stomach. "This is Simone, from the firm. I told you about her, remember? She doesn't have any family in town, so I invited her to join us. You don't mind, right?" It wasn't a question. He'd already invited her. She was already here, in my home, smiling at me with straight white teeth that probably cost someone a fortune in orthodontia. "Hi." Simone's voice was bright, enthusiastic, with that particular quality of someone who'd never been told no in her entire life. "Oh my God, it smells incredible in here. Marcus told me you were an amazing cook, but wow, this is like restaurant quality." She said it like she was surprised, like she'd expected less. "Thank you," I managed, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. Marcus, can I talk to you for a second?" Sure. He was already moving past me, opening the cabinet where we kept the wine glasses. The good ones, crystal from our wedding registry. "Simone, make yourself comfortable. Red or white?" "Red would be perfect," she purred, and I actually watched, as she walked past me into my living room and settled onto my couch like she owned it. She crossed her legs in that effortless way thin women do, her dress riding up just enough to be noticeable but not scandalous. "Marcus." My hand closed around his wrist before he could pull down the wine. Kitchen. Now. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, maybe, or warning. But he followed me to the corner by the refrigerator, far enough that she hopefully couldn't hear. "What the hell is this?" I hissed, my voice low and urgent. "What's what?" He had the audacity to look confused. "I told you, she's from work. She's new in town, doesn't know anyone, and it's Christmas. I was being nice." "You were being nice." I repeated it slowly, letting each word carry the weight of 7 years of learning to read his lies. "You bring a woman I've never met to our family Christmas. You call her baby in our hallway, and you think that's being nice?" I didn't call her baby. But his eyes shifted left, just for a second. "And Jesus, it's Christmas. Can you not be paranoid for one damn day?" Paranoid. The word hit like a slap. "Marcus?" "Mommy!" My daughter's voice rang out from the top of the stairs. "Is it time for dinner yet? I'm so hungry." 7 years old, gap-toothed, wearing the red velvet dress I'd ironed that morning. She came thundering down the stairs with all the grace of a small tornado, then stopped short when she saw Simone on our couch. "Daddy? Who's that?" "This is Daddy's friend from work, sweetie, Miss Simone. She's going to have dinner with us tonight." "Oh." My daughter processed this with the peculiar logic of children. "Okay. Hi, Miss Simone. I like your dress." "Hi, beautiful, and thank you. I like yours too." Simone's smile was perfect, warm, the kind of smile that made you want to trust her. "What's your name?" "Zara." "It means princess. Well, you definitely look like a princess." And just like that, my daughter was charmed. She climbed up onto the couch next to Simone, chattering about the ornaments she'd made for the tree, about school, about everything and nothing. I looked at Marcus, really looked at him, saw the way his jaw was set, the defensive tilt of his shoulders, the way he wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "We're not done talking about this," I said quietly. "Yeah, we are." He grabbed the bottle of wine, the expensive Merlot we'd been saving for a special occasion, and 2 glasses. "Dinner in 15? He didn't wait for an answer. I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by the ruins of my perfect Christmas dinner, and felt something crack open inside my chest. Not my heart. That would hurt less. This was deeper. This was the foundation I built my entire adult life on, crumbling to dust while I watched. But I couldn't fall apart. Not yet. Not with my daughter in the next room. Not with this woman sitting on my couch drinking my wine. So I did what I'd always done. I kept going. I finished the dinner. I called them to the table. I smiled. And I started paying attention. After dinner, Marcus didn't even pretend anymore. He'd seated Simone at the head of the table, my mother's spot, the seat I'd left empty for 3 years since she passed, because it hurt too much to see anyone else there. When I opened my mouth to say something, Marcus cut me off with a look that said, "Don't make a scene." So I didn't. I sat down, I served the food, I watched. The comparisons started small, innocent almost. "Simone just made junior partner," Marcus announced as he helped himself to ham. "Youngest in the firm's history. 26 years old and already running her own cases." "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it, even as something cold settled in my stomach. "She's brilliant," he continued, and there was a light in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Absolutely brilliant. The way her mind works, she sees angles nobody else catches. "She's going places," Simone said, turning those luminous eyes on me. "She said you used to work in marketing before Zara?" "Used to." Past tense. Like that part of me had died. "I did," I said carefully. "I was an account manager at Feldman and Associates. But when Zara was born, we decided it made more sense for me to stay home. Daycare costs were—" "Oh, I totally get it," Simone interrupted, her voice dripping with sympathy that felt like acid. "It's so important for kids to have that stability, you know? My mom worked, and I always wish she'd been home more. It's really selfless of you to give up your career like that. Give up. Not pause. Not put on hold. Give up." "Well, somebody had to raise our daughter," I said, and I couldn't quite keep the edge from my voice. Of course, of course. Simone took a delicate bite of mac and cheese. Oh, wow, this is really good. So rich. I could never eat like this and maintain my figure, but it's such a treat to indulge sometimes, you know? The implication hung in the air like smoke. I'd gained 40 pounds with Zara. Lost 20 of it in the first year, but the last 20 had clung on through sleepless nights and stress eating, and the slow erosion of having no time for myself. I wasn't fat, not even close, but I wasn't 25 and willowy anymore either. I had stretch marks, loose skin on my stomach, breasts that had fed a child and paid the price. I'd learned to make peace with my body, learned to see it as evidence of what I'd created, what I'd survived. But sitting across from Simone, watching Marcus's eyes flick between us, I felt every pound like an anchor. Mommy makes the best food, Zara piped up loyally. And my heart swelled. She makes me special pancakes every Saturday with chocolate chips. That's so sweet, Simone cooed. You're lucky to have such a devoted mom. Devoted, another word that sounded like praise but felt like dismissal. The dinner continued. Marcus poured Simone more wine, the expensive bottle empty now, a second one opened. He barely touched his food, too busy talking to her about cases I didn't understand, people I didn't know, inside jokes from a world I was no longer part of. I'd given up my career to raise our daughter. He'd promised it was temporary, that we were a team, that my sacrifice mattered. Now I watched him light up for another woman while discussing the very career I'd abandoned to support his. The new associate we hired is a disaster, Marcus said, laughing. Keeps mixing up the Patterson and Patterson files. Can you imagine? God, no. Simone laughed too. That bright, musical sound. Remember when he accidentally sent the draft motion to the client instead of to us? I thought you were going to lose your mind. You saved that situation, your quick thinking. He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to see. My daughter saw it too. Her eyes went wide, confused. Daddy, she said quietly, why are you holding her hand? The table went silent. Marcus pulled back quickly, too quickly. We were talking about work, sweetie. Grown-up stuff. But you hold Mommy's hand when you love her. Zara's voice was small now, uncertain. Do you love Miss Simone? Zara. My voice came out sharper than I intended. That's enough. Finish your dinner. But Mommy, I said enough. Her eyes filled with tears. She pushed her plate away and climbed down from her chair. May I be excused? I nodded, not trusting my voice, and watched her run upstairs. A moment later, her bedroom door slammed. Well, Simone said into the silence, she's spirited. Something in me snapped. She's 7 years old and confused about why there's a strange woman at her family Christmas dinner. I set down my fork with deliberate care. Marcus, what is this really about? He had the grace to look uncomfortable at least. He drained his wineglass, poured another. Can we not do this now? Do what? Ask questions about why you brought your colleague to our family dinner without discussing it with me first? I told you she doesn't have family here. You called her baby. The words came out flat, emotionless. When you walked in, I heard you. Simone's eyes widened. Marcus's jaw tightened. You misheard. I didn't. Jesus Christ. He pushed back from the table, the chair scraping loud against the floor. This is exactly why I didn't want to do this here, but fine. You want to talk? Let's talk. She looked at me. Do what here? What are you talking about? He looked at Simone, actually looked at her, like he was drawing strength from her presence. Then he turned back to me. I'm unhappy, he said simply. I have been for years. This, he gestured around the table, at the food I'd spent 3 days preparing, at the home I'd spent 7 years maintaining. This isn't enough anymore. It's not what I want. The words hit like physical blows. What you want, I repeated slowly. What about what we built together? What about our daughter? Zara will be fine. Kids are resilient. He said it like he'd practiced, like he'd rehearsed this moment. And honestly, maybe she'll be better off not growing up watching a marriage where neither parent is happy. Neither parent. My voice rose despite myself. You mean you're not happy. Are you? He leaned forward, aggressive now. Really? Are you happy cooking and cleaning and doing the same thing every single day, never challenging yourself, never growing, just existing? Every fear I'd had in the dark hours of sleepless nights, every doubt I'd pushed down, every moment I'd wondered if I'd made a mistake giving up my career. He'd taken them all and weaponized them. I'm raising our daughter, I said, and my voice shook. I'm building a home. You're comfortable. He cut me off. And comfort isn't love. It's just settling. Simone stood up then, smoothing her dress. Maybe I should go. This seems like a private conversation. No. Marcus's hand shot out, catching her wrist. Stay, please. You're part of this conversation too. The room tilted. Part of this conversation? I echoed. How is she part of this conversation, Marcus? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw it. The decision already made. The future already planned. The ending already written. Because I'm in love with her, he said, and I want a divorce. The world stopped. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear Christmas music playing from the speaker in the living room. Silent night. The tree lights twinkled merrily. The food was getting cold on the table. My daughter was crying upstairs, and my husband was holding another woman's wrist in my dining room, using my mother's china on Christmas Eve, telling me he wanted to end our marriage. I couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't make the words real by speaking them. I'm sorry, he said, and he didn't sound sorry at all. I didn't want to do it like this, but you forced the conversation. Simone and I have been together for a while now, and... How long? My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It was cold, distant, belonging to someone else. How long is a while? He and Simone exchanged a look. 8 months, she said softly. Almost 9. 8 months. While I was packing his lunches. While I was raising his daughter. While I was keeping his home and his life running smoothly so he could focus on his career. While I was making his favorite meals and sleeping beside him every night and believing we were building something together. 8 months. Get out, I whispered. Now listen, Marcus started. Get out. The scream tore from somewhere deep inside me, primal and raw. Get out of my house, both of you. Technically, it's our house, Marcus said, and the lawyer in him emerged. And I think we need to discuss custody arrangements, division of assets. I don't give a damn about your arrangements. I was on my feet now, though I didn't remember standing. You brought your mistress to our family Christmas dinner. You humiliated me in front of our daughter. You just told me you've been cheating on me for 8 months, and you want to discuss arrangements? See, this is why I didn't want to tell you here. He was gathering his things now, helping Simone into her coat. You're being emotional and unreasonable. I'm being emotional? I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. You just blew up our entire life, and I'm being emotional? We'll talk when you've calmed down. He pulled out his keys. I'll get a hotel room for tonight. Give you some space. I'll be back tomorrow for my things. They were leaving, actually leaving, walking toward the door like they hadn't just detonated a bomb in the center of my life. Marcus, my voice stopped him at the threshold. Does she know? He turned back wary. Does she know what? That you did the exact same thing to your first wife. Left her for a younger woman from work. Does Simone know she's not special? That she's just a pattern? It was a lie. Marcus had never been married before, but I watched his face change, watched Simone's eyes snap to him, watched doubt flicker across her perfect features. That's not, he started. Ask him about Jessica, I said, committing to the bluff. The paralegal before Simone. Ask him what happened there. There was no Jessica, but Simone didn't know that, and the flash of panic on Marcus's face told me I'd hit a nerve. Maybe not with that specific name, but with the pattern, with the fear that she wasn't as special as she thought. "We're leaving," Marcus said firmly, but Simone was already pulling away from him, something shifting in her expression. The door closed behind them, and I was alone. I stood in my perfect dining room, surrounded by the ruins of my perfect Christmas dinner, and the silence was deafening. The food was still warm on the table. My daughter was still crying upstairs. The tree lights were still twinkling. Everything looked the same. Everything was different. I walked to the wine cabinet on autopilot, pulled out the bottle of whiskey we kept for Marcus's clients, and poured 3 fingers into a juice glass. Drank it in 2 swallows. Poured another. Then I saw it. On the couch, tucked between the cushions where Simone had been sitting, a lipstick. Expensive looking. Gold case. The color a deep burgundy. She must have pulled it from her purse and forgotten it. I picked it up slowly, turned it over in my hands, and that's when I noticed the napkin. One of my good napkins, the cloth ones I only used for special occasions. It had fallen behind the side table. When I pulled it out, I saw the lipstick stain, the same deep burgundy. My stomach dropped. This wasn't the first time she'd been here. The napkin was from Thanksgiving. I recognized it because I'd embroidered the edges myself, added little autumn leaves in orange and gold thread. I'd used these specific napkins 4 weeks ago at Thanksgiving dinner when Marcus said he had to work late and couldn't make it. She'd been in my home before, sitting on my furniture, using my things, probably laughing at me while I cooked and cleaned and waited for my husband to come home. How many times? How many times had he brought her here while I was out, while I was picking up our daughter from school or grocery shopping or at the doctor's office? How many times had they been together in my home, in my bed, in my life? I walked upstairs on numb legs, past my daughter's closed door, where I could still hear muffled crying, into the bedroom I'd shared with Marcus for 7 years. I pulled out the old iPad we kept in the nightstand drawer, the one Zara used for games sometimes, the one I'd forgotten could sync with Marcus's phone. I opened his messages, and there it was, everything, months and months of it, backed up and preserved in perfect detail. "Miss you already. Your bed is so much better than mine. Simone, from 2 weeks ago. Can't wait to see you tonight. She's taking Z to her sister's, so we'll have the house to ourselves. Marcus, from last month. Do you think she suspects? Simone. No, she's too busy playing housewife to notice anything. Marcus. Poor thing. She really has no idea what she's missing out on. Not having a career, not having a life, just existing for other people. Simone. That's what I'm saying. She gave up everything, and now she just expects me to be grateful. It's suffocating. Marcus. Well, you won't have to suffer much longer. My friend is a divorce attorney. She's brutal. Your wife won't know what hit her. Simone. I read message after message, each one a fresh betrayal. They'd discussed strategy. They'd planned this. Simone wasn't just his mistress. She was helping him prepare for the divorce, helping him hide assets, helping him build a case that would leave me with nothing. There were photos, too. Her in my kitchen, in my living room, in my bed, in my bed. The bed where I'd given birth to his daughter when she came too fast for the hospital. The bed where I'd nursed her through countless sleepless nights. The bed where I'd comforted him when his father died. The bed where we'd built our life together, moment by moment, year by year. And he'd brought her there. Something inside me didn't break. Breaking would have been cleaner, kinder. This was calcification, crystallization. The soft, hopeful parts of me that had believed in love and partnership and building something beautiful together. They didn't shatter. They hardened into something cold and sharp and unforgiving. I sat on the edge of that defiled bed, the iPad glowing in my hands, and I stopped crying. There would be time for tears later, time for grieving the death of the life I'd thought I was living. Right now, there was only one thought in my head, clear and bright and absolutely certain. He wanted a divorce. He was going to get one. But not the divorce he'd planned. Not the one Simone's brutal attorney friend had strategized. Not the one where I rolled over and accepted whatever scraps he decided to throw me. I stood up, walked to my closet, and pulled out the box I kept on the top shelf. Bank statements, tax returns, the deed to the house. All are important documents, organized and filed, because I was the one who handled all of that. The boring administrative work of keeping a life running smoothly. I took photos of everything, uploaded them to a cloud account Marcus didn't know existed. Then I went through his phone records on the iPad. Every call to Simone, time-stamped and dated. Every message, every photo. I saved it all. I opened my laptop and searched for divorce attorneys in the city. Not the ones Marcus might know. Not the ones who worked in family law at the big firms. I found the name that kept appearing in articles about high-profile divorces, the one described as ruthless and uncompromising. Diane Morrison. I sent her an email, marked urgent, asking for a consultation, first thing after Christmas. Then I did something that would have seemed petty and small just hours ago, but now felt necessary and right. I changed the locks, not just on the front door, on everything. Every entrance to the house that was in my name, that I'd inherited from my mother, that Marcus had moved into when we got married. Because that's what I'd forgotten in the shock and grief and humiliation. This house wasn't ours. It was mine. My mother had left it to me when she died, specifically to me, not to both of us. The deed was in my name alone. Marcus could get a hotel room tonight? Perfect. He could get one tomorrow too. And the day after that. And every day after that, until we stood in front of a judge and I made sure he understood exactly what it cost to throw away 7 years of marriage for a 26-year-old paralegal. I heard a small sound at the door, turned to see Zara standing there in her red velvet dress, her face blotchy from crying, her eyes huge and frightened. "Mommy," her voice was so small. "Is Daddy coming back?" I knelt down, pulled her into my arms, and held her while she cried into my shoulder. She smelled like the lavender detergent I used on her clothes, and the peach cobbler she'd snuck a taste of before dinner, an innocence that was already starting to fade. "I don't know, baby," I whispered into her hair, "but I promise you, no matter what happens, you and me, we're gonna be okay. Better than okay. I don't like Miss Simone," she said, fiercely. "She made Daddy act mean to you." "Miss Simone didn't make Daddy do anything," I said, and I needed her to hear this, to understand this. Daddy made his own choices, and those choices hurt us. But that's not your fault, okay? None of this is your fault. She nodded against my shoulder, and we sat there on the floor of my bedroom while Christmas music played downstairs, and the dinner I'd spent 3 days preparing grew cold on the table. Later, after I'd gotten Zara into bed and kissed her goodnight a dozen times, after I'd cleaned up the kitchen and put away the food and thrown out the expensive wine Simone had drunk, after I'd sat alone in the wreckage of my perfect Christmas and let myself feel the full weight of what had happened, after all of that, I poured myself another glass of whiskey, opened my laptop, and started making a list. Everything I knew about Marcus's work, his clients, his cases. His secrets, everything I'd overheard in 7 years of being the invisible wife in the background, dismissed and underestimated and ignored. They thought I was just comfortable, just settling, just existing without purpose or drive or ambition. They had no idea what I was capable of, but they were about to find out. Retry. Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, 3 cups of coffee, and a clarity I hadn't felt in years. It was like someone had turned on a light in a room I'd been fumbling through in darkness, and suddenly I could see everything. Every overlooked detail, every dismissive comment, every time Marcus had underestimated me. It was all about to become his biggest mistake. At 6 a.m., I heard my phone buzz. "Marcus, we need to talk about arrangements." I'll come by around noon to get some of my things. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "The locks have been changed. This is my house, inherited from my mother. The deed is in my name alone. You're welcome to collect your belongings with 24 hours written notice as per Tennessee property law." The response came immediately. "You can't do that. We're married. I have rights." "So do I. See you in court." I blocked his number. Not permanently. I'd need those messages as evidence. But for now, I needed silence, space to think, room to plan. At 7 a.m., I called my cousin Jennifer. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Girl, it's Christmas morning. This better be. Marcus is having an affair and wants a divorce." The words came out steady, clinical. "I need a lawyer, the best you know." Silence. Then, "I'll make some calls. How are you holding up?" "I'm not." I took a sip of coffee. "But I will be. After I destroy him." Jennifer knew me well enough not to argue. "Give me an hour." 53 minutes later, she called back. "Diane Morrison, she's a shark. Handles high-profile divorces for women who want blood. Her retainer is $20,000. But Keisha, she wins." She doesn't just win, she demolishes. "Can you get me a meeting?" She doesn't usually work the day after Christmas, but when I told her the basics, "She'll see you tomorrow at 9 a.m., she said any man who brings his mistress to Christmas dinner deserves what's coming. I felt something that might have been a smile. Text me her address. After we hung up, I went upstairs to check on Zara. She was still asleep, curled up with her stuffed elephant, her face peaceful in a way that made my chest ache. She was so young, too young to understand what was happening, old enough to be hurt by it. I kissed her forehead gently, then went to my office. It was really just a converted spare bedroom, a space Marcus had grudgingly agreed I could use for my hobbies. As if managing our entire household was a hobby. As if the work I did, tracking expenses, managing schedules, coordinating everything that kept our life running smoothly, was somehow less valuable because I didn't get a paycheck for it. But that hobby room was about to become a war room. I pulled out every file, every document, every piece of paper related to our finances. 7 years of meticulous record keeping, bank statements, credit card bills, tax returns, investment accounts, everything. And as I went through them, really went through them with fresh eyes and new purpose, I started to see patterns. Money was missing. Not a lot at once, nothing obvious. But over the past 8 months, right when his affair with Simone started, there had been a steady trickle of funds moving from our joint accounts into places I couldn't track. 500 here, 1,000 there. Cash withdrawals that added up to tens of thousands of dollars. I pulled up our main checking account online. Marcus had always handled the big picture finances, the investments and retirement accounts. I'd handled the day-to-day bills and expenses. It had seemed like a reasonable division of labor. Now I realized it had been strategic. I started digging deeper, using the passwords I'd memorized from years of occasionally needing to access accounts when Marcus was unavailable. Most people used the same password for everything, your small variations. Marcus was no different. What I found made my blood run cold. 3 months ago, he'd opened a new savings account, in his name only, and he'd been funneling money into it from our joint investments. Money that was supposed to be for Zara's college fund, for our retirement, for our future. There was over $40,000 in it. I took screenshots of everything. Dates, amounts, account numbers, downloaded statements. Saved it all to my secure cloud account and a thumb drive I hid in my tampon box, the one place I knew Marcus would never look. But I wasn't done. I opened Marcus's laptop, the one he kept in his home office, not the one from work. He usually took his work laptop with him, but this personal one he left lying around because there's nothing important on it. He'd underestimated me again. The laptop was synced to his email, his personal email, the one he thought I didn't know the password to, but I'd watched him type it in dozens of times over the years, had memorized the pattern of his fingers on the keyboard, even if I hadn't consciously realized I was doing it. I logged in, and there it was. An entire digital affair, laid out like evidence in a trial. But it wasn't just the affair I found. There were emails to Simone's friend, the divorce attorney she'd mentioned, Rebecca Cho, one of the most aggressive family law attorneys in the state. They'd been planning this for months. Strategy sessions disguised as consultations. Discussions about how to minimize his financial obligations, how to argue for split custody, how to make it look like I was an unfit mother. One email made me actually gasp out loud. "Rebecca, what if we can prove she's been unstable? I could document some incidents, maybe show she's not fit for primary custody. That would reduce child support obligations significantly." Right? He was planning to lie, to paint me as mentally unstable, to use my grief over my mother's death, my struggles with postpartum depression years ago, private pain I'd shared with him in moments of vulnerability as weapons against me in court. My hands shook as I screenshot every single email, every message, every disgusting, calculating plan to take my daughter from me while leaving me financially devastated. But then I found something else, something that changed everything. An email from 3 weeks ago, from Marcus to a private investigator. "I need documentation of my wife's daily activities. Times she leaves the house, where she goes, how long she's gone. I need to build a case that she's neglectful, that she leaves our daughter alone or with babysitters more than necessary. Can you do this discreetly?" He'd hired a private investigator to follow me, to watch me, to build a false case against me. The investigator's response was brief. "After 2 weeks of surveillance, I cannot provide the documentation you're requesting because it doesn't exist. Your wife maintains a consistent routine focused on childcare. She is at the school for drop-off and pickup every day. She is present at all activities. The child is never left alone. I cannot, in good conscience, falsify a report. I'm returning your retainer and terminating this contract." Even the PI Marcus had hired to destroy me had more integrity than my husband. I saved that email separately, flagged it as critical evidence. Then I kept digging. And I found the real treasure, buried in a folder marked baseball stats. Because Marcus knew I'd never look there, I found documents related to his firm, confidential documents, client billing records. And in those records, I saw something that made my pulse quicken. Overbilling. Systematic, deliberate overbilling. Marcus had been padding hours on client accounts for over a year. Not egregiously, he was too smart for that. Just 15 minutes here, half an hour there. But across dozens of clients, it added up to the tune of over $100,000 in fraudulent billing. And Simone's name was on half of them. She wasn't just his mistress. She was his accomplice. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. This was bigger than infidelity. This was fraud. This could get them both disbarred. This could end both their careers. This was leverage. But I had to be smart, had to be strategic. If I played this card too early, they'd lawyer up, destroy evidence, coordinate their stories. I needed to wait for exactly the right moment. I copied everything to multiple drives, uploaded it to 3 separate cloud accounts. Then I cleared the browser history, closed the laptop, and put everything back exactly as I'd found it. My phone buzzed. "Jennifer again. Diane Morrison wants to know if you can come in today instead of tomorrow. She said she has some ideas." "I'll be there." "What time?" 2 p.m. "And Keisha, bring everything, every document, every screenshot, every piece of evidence you have. She said to tell you, we're not going for a settlement. We're going for annihilation." I looked at the clock. It was barely 10 a.m. I had 4 hours. I called my sister, the one who lived 30 minutes away. "Can you watch Zara this afternoon? I have an appointment." "Of course. Everything okay?" "It will be." Next, I did something I should have done years ago. I pulled my credit report. Mine and Marcus's. I needed to see the full financial picture. Needed to know if there were any other surprises waiting. And there it was. Another surprise. Marcus had taken out a personal loan 6 months ago. $50,000, using our house as collateral. My house, the one in my name, he'd forged my signature on the loan documents. That wasn't just betrayal, that was a felony. I screenshot the loan information, traced where the money had gone. Some of it to the secret savings account. The rest, I tracked it through credit card statements, had been spent on Simone, jewelry, trips, a weekend getaway to Charleston, dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. He'd mortgaged my mother's house to fund his affair. The rage that swept through me was so pure, so crystalline, that it was almost beautiful. This wasn't the hot, chaotic anger of last night. This was cold calculation. This was purpose. I added the loan fraud to my evidence pile and kept digging. By the time I had to leave for Zara's drop-off at my sister's house, I had compiled a dossier that would make a federal prosecutor weep with joy. Financial fraud, forgery, overbilling, misuse of marital assets. A paper trail so clear and damning that even the best attorney in the world couldn't spin it. And I had something else too. I'd gone back through the messages on the iPad, through the backup of Marcus's phone, and I'd found messages between Simone and someone named David, messages that were intimate, recent, from 2 weeks ago. Missing you. When can I see you again? Soon, baby, I promise. Just waiting for the right moment. Your wife still doesn't know? No, and she won't. Not until I'm ready. Simone was married. Not just married, actively married, to someone named David Chen, according to her Facebook profile that I found after 10 minutes of searching. Married for 3 years, no kids, and based on his social media, he had no idea his wife was sleeping with her boss. Simone wasn't just Marcus's accomplice in fraud. She wasn't just the other woman breaking up my family. She was doing the exact same thing to someone else, to David, another person who trusted her, who believed in their marriage, who had no idea the life he thought he was living was a lie. I felt something strange then. Not quite sympathy. I was too raw for that, but a kind of grim solidarity. David and I were both victims of the same two people. Both of us betrayed, both of us lied to, both of us building lives on foundations that had already crumbled. I found his contact information, his work email, his phone number. I didn't reach out. Not yet, but I saved it all, because I had a feeling that David Chen might be a very useful ally when the time came. At 1:30, I dropped Zara off at my sister's house. She hugged me tight, and I held her like I could pour all my love and protection into that embrace. Mommy has to take care of some grown-up stuff, I told her, but I'll pick you up for dinner, okay? We'll get pizza. Is Daddy coming home? She asked, and the hope in her voice nearly broke me. I don't know yet, baby, but whatever happens, you and me, we're going to be just fine, I promise. At 2 p.m. exactly, I walked into Diane Morrison's office carrying 2 thumb drives, a folder 3 inches thick, and a purpose so clear it was almost peaceful. Diane was in her 50s, black, impeccably dressed in a sharp gray suit. She had the kind of face that probably smiled easily in normal life, but right now it was all business. She gestured to the chair across from her massive desk. Keisha. She didn't offer her hand, didn't waste time on pleasantries. Tell me everything, and I mean everything. Don't leave out a single detail, no matter how small or embarrassing or painful. The only way I can help you is if I know the full truth. So, I told her, all of it. The affair, the Christmas dinner, the 8 months of lies, the secret accounts. The forged loan documents, the overbilling scheme, Simone's marriage, the private investigator Marcus had hired to build a false case against me, his plans to paint me as unstable. I showed her everything I'd found, every document, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I'd compiled in less than 24 hours. By the time I finished, 90 minutes had passed. Diane had filled an entire legal pad with notes. She sat back in her chair, studied me for a long moment, then smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who just spotted prey. "Mrs. Thompson," she said, "your husband made a critical error." "Which one?" I asked, because there were so many. "He assumed you were powerless, that being a stay-at-home mother made you weak, that you'd roll over and accept whatever he decided to give you." She leaned forward. "He has no idea who he's dealing with, does he?" "No," I said. "He doesn't." "Good." She tapped her pen against the legal pad. "Here's what we're going to do. First, we're not filing for divorce yet. He thinks he's in control of the timeline. But we're going to let him think that for a little while longer. While he's busy planning his exit strategy with his girlfriend and her attorney friend, we're going to build an airtight case." "What kind of case?" "The kind that ends careers." Her smile widened. "The forged loan documents? That's fraud. The overbilling scheme? That's something the State Bar Association will be very interested in. The fact that he used marital assets to fund an affair while hiding money, that's dissipation of assets, and judges hate that. What about Simone? What about her?" Diane's eyes glinted. "She's a paralegal who helped her boss commit billing fraud. She's engaged in an affair with a married partner while she herself is married. She's participated in a scheme to defraud you of your marital property. We have evidence of all of it. Will she lose her job? Her job, her marriage, and possibly her freedom, depending on how aggressive the Bar Association wants to be about the fraud." Diane tilted her head. "Do you want to show mercy to the woman who spent months sleeping with your husband in your bed, mocking you in text messages, and helping him plan to take your daughter from you?" I thought about Simone's perfect smile, her condescending sympathy, her hand in Marcus's at my dinner table. My daughter asking why Daddy was holding her hand. "No," I said, "I don't." "Good answer." Diane made another note. "Here's what I need you to do. Go home. Act normal. If Marcus reaches out, be civil, but firm about him not being welcome in the house without notice. Document every communication, every text, every email, every attempt at contact. If he shows up at the house, record it if you can. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to file a motion to freeze all marital assets. Every account, every investment, everything. He won't be able to move a single dollar without court approval. Then I'm going to request a forensic accountant to go through your finances with a microscope. When we find all the money he's hidden, and we will find it, the judge is going to be very unhappy with Mr. Thompson. And the fraud? The overbilling? That I'm going to hand over to the State Bar Association with a detailed complaint. Anonymously at first. We don't want them knowing it came from you. Let them start their own investigation. When it comes time for the divorce proceedings, that investigation will already be underway. It'll be too late for them to hide anything." I felt something loosening in my chest. Not quite hope. It was too soon for that. But possibility. The sense that I wasn't alone anymore. That I had an ally who was just as smart, just as strategic, just as ruthless as they'd been. "What about David?" I asked. "Simone's husband?" Diane considered this. "That's your call. Personally, I think he deserves to know. But the question is timing. If we tell him now, Simone will know we're on to her, and she might convince Marcus to destroy evidence. If we wait, well, he stays married to a woman who's betraying him. Just like I did for 8 months without knowing. Yes, I thought about that. Thought about David Chen living his life, trusting his wife, having no idea that everything was about to explode. I thought about how I'd felt yesterday, serving Christmas dinner, while my husband and his mistress exchanged secret smiles. "I'll wait," I said, "but not long. Once your motion to freeze assets is filed, once there's no way for them to hide anything else, I'll tell him then." "Fair enough." Diane stood, offered her hand, finally. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to be very honest with you. This is going to get ugly. Your husband will fight back. He'll say terrible things, make accusations, try to paint you as vindictive or crazy. His attorney will come at you hard. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about my daughter upstairs crying while Marcus held another woman's hand. I thought about the text messages mocking me for being a housewife. I thought about him trying to hire a PI to prove I was a bad mother. I thought about him forging my signature, stealing from our daughter's future, planning to destroy me while I cooked his favorite meals. "I'm prepared," I said. We shook hands. That evening, after I picked up Zara and we shared pizza and I tucked her into bed with extra kisses, I sat in my living room and opened my laptop one more time. There was an email from Marcus, sent to his work account, but forwarding to his personal one. I shouldn't have been able to see it, but I'd given myself access to his personal email, and he still didn't know. It was from Rebecca Cho, Simone's attorney friend. The subject line, "Strategy Session, Thompson Divorce." I opened it. "Marcus, after reviewing the situation, I think our best approach is to move quickly. File first, control the narrative. We should paint Keisha as financially dependent and emotionally unstable. The longer we wait, the more time she has to prepare. Strike while she's still reeling from the shock. For custody, we emphasize her depression history. It's statements from friends about her isolation and lack of social life. Frame her role as a stay-at-home mom as evidence she has no life skills, no employability, no ability to adapt. If we can show she's too dependent and fragile to handle change, we can argue for split custody with you as primary. Financially, we need to minimize the marital estate. Any purchases or withdrawals you made recently will justify as marital expenses. The savings account in your name will say you were planning for Zara's future and Keisha knew about it. She can't prove otherwise. Bottom line, we need to file within the next 2 weeks before she lawyers up properly, before she realizes what she's entitled to. If we wait, this gets expensive for you. Let's meet Monday to finalize the paperwork. We'll have you file by end of next week. Rebecca. I read it 3 times, screenshotted it, saved it to my evidence file. They wanted to strike while I was reeling. They had no idea I'd stopped reeling the moment I'd found that lipstick-stained napkin. The moment I'd realized this wasn't a sudden decision, but a calculated plan. The moment I'd understood that my husband wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to destroy me. But I wasn't the woman they thought I was anymore. I'd spent 7 years being underestimated, being dismissed, being treated like I was decoration in my own life, like my contributions didn't matter, like I was too comfortable and stagnant to be worth considering. They'd forgotten that comfort and stagnation aren't the same thing. That being underestimated is the greatest strategic advantage you can have, that the person you dismiss is the one who sees everything. I closed the laptop and poured myself a small glass of whiskey, raised it in a silent toast to my mother's photo on the mantel. "Thanks for the house, Mama," I whispered, "and thanks for teaching me that a woman who looks soft can still have steel in her spine." Monday morning, Diane would file her motions. The assets would freeze. The forensic investigation would begin. The Bar Association would receive their anonymous complaint, complete with meticulously documented evidence. And by the time Marcus and Rebecca and Simone realized they'd miscalculated, by the time they understood that the woman they'd dismissed was actually the most dangerous person in the room, it would be too late. The game had already begun, and they didn't even know they were playing. The dominoes started falling on a Tuesday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Christmas. I was making Zara breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes, her favorite, when my phone rang. Diane Morrison, her voice crackling with barely contained excitement. "They filed," she said without preamble. "Marcus filed for divorce yesterday, just like his attorney planned." I flipped a pancake, watched it sizzle. "And?" I asked. "And he's about to have a very bad day." I could hear the smile in her voice. Our motion to freeze assets was filed 30 minutes before his divorce petition. The judge granted it an hour ago. As of right now, Marcus Thompson cannot access a single dollar from any account connected to you without court approval. I felt a savage satisfaction bloom in my chest. What about the secret account? Frozen, along with his paycheck, pending the forensic investigation. The judge was very interested in the loan documents you provided. the ones with your forged signature. She's ordered both parties to appear for an emergency hearing on Friday. This Friday? Judge Patricia Reeves doesn't waste time, especially when there's potential fraud involved. Diane paused. How are you holding up? I looked at my daughter sitting at the kitchen table, humming to herself while she colored. Safe, happy, unaware that her world was about to shift on its axis again. I'm ready, I said. After I hung up, I served Zara her pancakes and poured myself another cup of coffee. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. This has gone too far. Marcus. I didn't respond. Diane had been clear. All communication goes through attorneys now. No exceptions. The phone rang. Marcus. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined again. Then came the texts, rapid fire. You can't freeze my accounts. I need that money to live. This is insane. You're being vindictive. Think about Zara. You're hurting her with these games. Fine, you want to play hardball? We can play hardball. I screenshot every message and forwarded them to Diane. Within minutes, she responded. Perfect. He's digging his own grave. Keep declining his calls. Let him spiral. An hour later, Jennifer called. Girl, have you seen Facebook? I deleted it years ago. Why? Marcus is having a meltdown. Public posts about how you've stolen his money, frozen him out, won't let him see his daughter. He's painting himself as the victim. I felt a flicker of worry. Is that going to be a problem? Are you kidding? Diane's going to love this. Judges hate when people air their divorce drama on social media. Screenshot everything and send it to her. I had Jennifer send me screenshots. Post after post of Marcus's narrative. The devoted father kept from his child by a vindictive, unstable ex. The hardworking husband whose wife was punishing him for wanting happiness. The victim of a woman who changed after they married. Each post was a gift, evidence of his state of mind, evidence that he was more concerned with public perception than his daughter's well-being, evidence that the calm, calculated lawyer was unraveling. By Wednesday morning, things escalated. I was loading Zara into the car for school when a silver BMW pulled into my driveway. Simone emerged, her face tight with anger, still managing to look perfect in designer athleisure wear. I pulled out my phone and hit record before she reached me. You need to stop this, she said, without greeting. Her voice was sharp, nothing like the sweet tone she'd used at Christmas. Marcus can't access his paycheck. His accounts are frozen. This is harassment. This is a legal proceeding, I said calmly, keeping my phone positioned to capture her face. If you have concerns, take them up with your attorney. Don't play games with me. She stepped closer. You think you're so smart, don't you? Playing the victim when everyone knows you've been holding Marcus back for years. He deserves better than a... Mommy, who's that lady? Zara's voice came from the car, frightened. Simone's eyes flicked to my daughter, and something calculating crossed her face. Hi, Zara. Remember me? From Christmas? Don't talk to my daughter, I said, my voice dropping to ice. She's going to be my stepdaughter soon enough, I think. You need to leave now. This is my property, and you're not welcome here. Your property? Simone laughed, harsh and ugly. You mean the property Marcus has been paying for? The house you wouldn't even have without him? My mother left me this house. Marcus never paid a single mortgage payment because there is no mortgage, or there wasn't, until your boyfriend forged my signature on a loan. Her face went white. That's a lie. Is it? I tilted my head. How much do you really know about what Marcus has been doing? Did he tell you about the $50,000 loan he took out using my house as collateral? The one where he forged my name? He wouldn't. Or did he tell you about the overbilling scheme? The one with your name all over it? Now, she looked genuinely afraid. I don't know what you're talking about. Really. Because the State Bar Association is going to be very interested in all those hours you and Marcus billed to clients for work that was never done. Very interested indeed. You're bluffing. I lowered my phone, smiled. Am I? I guess you'll find out soon enough. Now get off my property before I call the police." She stood there for a moment longer, trembling with rage or fear or both. Then she spun on her heel and stalked back to her car. The BMW reversed too quickly, tires squealing as she fled. "Mommy?" Zara's voice was small. "Why was that lady so mean?" "Because she's scared, baby. And people get mean when they're scared." I sent the video to Diane immediately. Her response came in under a minute. "Gold. She just admitted on camera. She expects to be Zara's stepdaughter," and referenced the property. "This shows premeditation and planning. Judge Reeves is going to eat this up." Thursday brought the next revelation. I was at the grocery store when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Is this Keisha Thompson?" A man's voice, uncertain. The Bar Association moved faster than I expected. It had been 6 days since my meeting with Diane, 6 days of silence from Marcus, who was presumably huddled with Rebecca Cho, preparing to file for divorce and destroy me in the process. 6 days of me playing the devastated, helpless wife while I quietly built a fortress around everything he thought he could take. On day 7, everything changed. I was making breakfast for Zara, chocolate chip pancakes, her favorite, when my phone rang. Diane's name flashed on the screen. "They took the bait," she said without preamble. "The Bar Association opened an investigation into Marcus Thompson and Simone Chen this morning. They executed a surprise audit of the firm's billing records at 8 a.m. I set down the spatula with a shaking hand. "Already?" I asked. "The evidence you provided was too damning to ignore. And here's the beautiful part. Because it was submitted anonymously, Marcus has no idea it came from you. Right now, he thinks it's a routine audit or maybe a complaint from a disgruntled client. What happens now? Now, we wait and watch. The Bar Association will interview clients, review files, compare billing records to actual work performed. This investigation will take weeks, maybe months. But the firm will suspend both Marcus and Simone pending the outcome. That's standard protocol for fraud allegations. My heart was hammering. So he'll lose his job? Temporarily at minimum. And Keisha? Once the firm starts their own internal investigation, and they will, to protect themselves, they're going to find everything. The affair, the conspiracy to defraud you, all of it. Marcus's legal career is effectively over. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt something colder, more certain. What about the motion to freeze assets? Filed yesterday. Hearing is scheduled for tomorrow at 2 p.m. Marcus's attorney will have received notice this morning. I expect a very angry phone call from Rebecca Cho any minute now. Diane's voice held grim satisfaction. They wanted to move fast, catch you unprepared. Instead, we caught them. After we hung up, I finished making breakfast, got Zara ready for school, went through all the normal motions of my normal life. But underneath the routine, my mind was racing. Marcus would know by now, would know about the asset freeze, would be panicking about the bar investigation, would be scrambling to understand how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. I wondered if he'd figured it out yet, that the helpless housewife he'd dismissed had been 3 steps ahead of him the entire time. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Mrs. Thompson, this is Rebecca Cho. We need to talk immediately. This asset freeze motion is unacceptable. My client has a right to access his own money." I stared at the message for a long moment, then forwarded it to Diane without responding. 3 minutes later, another message. "I'm advising you that any further hostile legal action will be viewed as an attempt to complicate what should be a straightforward dissolution of marriage. My client is willing to be generous, but not if you insist on playing games." Generous. The word made me laugh, actually laugh out loud. He was going to be generous? After stealing from me, lying to me, trying to frame me as an unfit mother? This time I did respond. "Please direct all communication through my attorney, Diane Morrison. I'm sure you know her." The reply came immediately. "Diane Morrison? You hired Diane Morrison? Jesus Christ, what are you trying to do? I didn't answer. I blocked the number and went to drop Zara off at school. When I got back home, there was a car in my driveway, Marcus's car. He was sitting on my front porch steps, and he looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled, wearing the same clothes I'd seen him in 2 days ago in a photo Simone had posted to her private Instagram, which I'd gained access to through a fake account. His eyes were bloodshot. I parked, got out slowly, kept my keys threaded through my fingers like my mother had taught me. You changed the locks, he said, not a question, an accusation. This is my house. I'm allowed to secure my own property. Keisha, we need to talk. He stood up, and I was struck by how different he looked, smaller somehow, less certain. This has gotten out of hand. The Bar Association showed up at the firm this morning. They're investigating billing irregularities. They suspended me and Simone pending an inquiry. I'm sorry to hear that. A lie came out smooth as silk. Are you? His eyes narrowed. Because the timing is pretty fucking convenient. Don't you think? I tell you I want a divorce and suddenly the Bar Association is crawling up my ass? Marcus, I've been home with our daughter. I wouldn't even know how to file a complaint with the Bar Association. I kept my voice level, almost bored. Maybe one of your clients finally noticed you were overbilling them. He flinched. I never. That's not. We have billing guidelines. Everything is documented. Then I'm sure the investigation will clear you. I moved toward my front door, but he blocked my path. And this asset freeze, this motion to freeze all our accounts, that's insane, Keisha. You're going to lock up my money because you're angry? Our money, and I'm not locking up anything. The court will decide what's equitable. You hired Diane Morrison. He said it like an accusation, like I'd betrayed him. Do you know what she's going to cost? We can't afford her. She's going to drain our savings with her fees. The savings you tried to hide from me? The words came out sharper than I intended. The $40,000 you moved into an account in your name only? That savings? His face went white. How did you? I'm not as stupid as you thought I was. I met his eyes directly. And this is my mother's house. You need to leave. Keisha, please. And now he was pleading, and I hated how satisfying it felt. We can work this out. We don't need lawyers tearing us apart. We can be civilized about this. We have a daughter to think about. Now you care about our daughter? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Where was that concern when you brought your mistress to Christmas dinner? When you held her hand at our family table? When you made Zara cry because she could see you choosing another woman over her mother? That's not... I didn't mean for it to happen like that. Simone and I, it just happened. But it doesn't mean I don't love Zara. It doesn't mean I want to hurt her. But you're fine with hurting me. You and I, he ran a hand through his hair. We haven't been good for a long time. You know that. We were just going through the motions. You were comfortable, I was comfortable, but neither of us was happy. I was happy. The words came out quietly, but they held weight. I was building a life, raising our daughter, making a home. Maybe it wasn't exciting to you, but it mattered to me. I know it did. But Keisha, he stepped closer, and I stepped back. Simone understands me. She gets my work, my ambitions. She challenges me. You and I, we're not partners anymore. We're roommates who happen to have a kid together. Is that what you told yourself while you were forging my signature on loan documents? I watched his face change. While you were mortgaging my mother's house to pay for your girlfriend's jewelry? I was going to tell you about the loan. When? Before or after you tried to take my daughter from me? I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshot I'd saved. Let me read you something. This is from your email to Rebecca Cho. What if we can prove she's been unstable? I could document some incidents, maybe show she's not fit for primary custody. He went completely still. You were going to lie, I continued, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. You were going to use my postpartum depression, my grief over my mother, every vulnerable moment I ever shared with you. You were going to weaponize it all to take Zara from me, while paying less child support. I wasn't. That was just we were exploring options. Get off my property. Keisha, get off my property. The scream tore from somewhere deep inside me. You don't get to stand here and make excuses. You don't get to pretend this was just an affair that happened. You planned this. You and Simone and her lawyer friend, you planned to destroy me, to leave me with nothing, to take my daughter and my home and my dignity. That's not what we were trying to do. Then what were you trying to do, Marcus? Enlighten me. What was the plan here? You walk away with your young girlfriend, your hidden money, primary custody of Zara, and I just, what, disappear? Thank you for the privilege of being discarded? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. I wanted to be fair. Fair. I laughed and it sounded unhinged. You wanted to be fair. Let me tell you what fair would have been. Fair would have been telling me you were unhappy. Fair would have been going to counseling. Fair would have been ending our marriage before you started fucking someone else in our bed. How did you? His face drained of color. The messages, Marcus. I saw all the messages. Your bed is so much better than mine. She's taking Zara to her sisters. We'll have the house to ourselves. Every disgusting detail of your affair, preserved forever in the cloud. He looked like he might be sick. You went through my phone, the iPad, the one that syncs automatically, the one you forgot about. I felt cold satisfaction watching him understand. Everything you said, everything you planned, every lie you told, I have all of it. You can't use that in court. That's an invasion of privacy. Actually, in Tennessee, I can. We're a one-party consent state for electronic communications between spouses. Your attorney friend should have told you that. I tilted my head, but maybe she was too busy helping you commit fraud to worry about the details. I'm not. We didn't commit fraud. The overbilling? The billing records you and Simone falsified? I watched him process this. The Bar Association has all of it now. Every padded hour, every inflated fee, every client you stole from. And here's the thing, Marcus. You did it for months, systematically. That's not an error. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. He sank down onto the porch steps like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Who told them? Who gave them the records? Does it matter? It was you. He looked up at me, and there was something like betrayal in his eyes. You did this. You destroyed my career because you're angry about Simone. No. I crouched down so we were at eye level. You destroyed your career when you decided to steal from clients. When you decided to commit fraud? When you decided that your affair was more important than your ethics, I just made sure the right people found out. You vindictive bitch. Get off my property. My voice was ice. Now, before I call the police and report you for trespassing. He stood up, stumbling slightly. This isn't over. You're right. It's not. The hearing for the asset freeze is tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll see you in court. I watched him get in his car, watched him drive away, and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no anger. Just cold certainty that I was doing what needed to be done. That evening, after Zara was in bed, I sat at my laptop and opened a new email. David Chen's email address stared back at me from the screen. It was time. I'd put this off long enough, telling myself I was waiting for the right moment. But the truth was simpler. I'd been afraid. Afraid of the pain I was about to cause, afraid of the life I was about to shatter, afraid of being the messenger who destroyed another person's world. But David deserved to know. Just like I should have known months ago. I started typing, Mr. Chen, you don't know me, but we have something in common. We're both married to people who are having an affair with each other. My name is Keisha Thompson. My husband, Marcus Thompson, has been in a relationship with your wife, Simone Chen, for approximately 9 months. I discovered this on Christmas Eve when Marcus brought Simone to our family dinner and announced he wanted a divorce. I'm not telling you this to be cruel. I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth about what's happening in your marriage. I know how painful this information is. I'm living through it myself. But I also know that not knowing is worse. Living in ignorance while everyone around you knows the truth is its own special kind of torture. I've attached some evidence. I'm sorry it's explicit. I'm sorry it's painful. But I thought you should see it for yourself, rather than just taking my word for it. If you want to talk, or if you need any additional information, please feel free to contact me. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this. I'm sorry this is happening to either of us. Keisha Thompson. I attached a carefully curated selection of screenshots. Messages between Marcus and Simone that made their relationship clear. Photos of them together. Nothing obscene. I wasn't trying to torture the man, but enough to be undeniable. My finger hovered over the send button for a long moment. Then I pressed it. The email went off into the digital void, carrying with it the destruction of another person's peace, another marriage ending, another life changing forever. I closed the laptop and poured myself a whiskey. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Thompson? The voice was male, shaking slightly. This is David Chen. Mr. Chen, I'm so sorry. Is it true? He cut me off. All of it? The affair? The duration? All of it? Yes, I'm sorry. Silence. Then, how long have you known? I found out Christmas Eve. I've been gathering evidence since then. Evidence. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're divorcing him? Yes. Good. The word came out hard, angry. Take him for everything he's worth. Destroy him. That's the plan. Another silence. When he spoke again, his voice was steadier. I need to ask you something. In the messages you sent, there's mention of billing fraud, an investigation. What's that about? So I told him. All of it. The overbilling scheme, the Bar Association investigation, the suspension from the firm, the hidden money, the forged loan documents, the conspiracy to defraud me in the divorce. I told him how Simone had been helping Marcus plan it all, how she'd connected him with her attorney friend, how she'd been actively participating in the plan to leave me with nothing. When I finished, there was a long pause. She told me she was working late, David said finally. All those nights, she said she was working late, helping with big cases. She was with him. Yes. And the weekend trip to Charleston. She said it was a conference. It was with Marcus. I have credit card receipts. Jesus Christ, his voice broke. 3 years. We've been married 3 years. We were trying for a baby. She said she wanted to wait a little longer, focus on her career first. Was she ever planning to have a family with me? Or was I just... What, a placeholder until something better came along? I didn't have an answer for that. How could I? I'd been asking myself the same questions about Marcus. Mr. Chen, David, I know this is overwhelming. I know you're in shock, but I need to ask you something. What? The divorce. Marcus and Simone are planning to fight me hard. They have a strategy. They have an attorney. They think they're going to win. But if you're willing to help, if you're willing to testify about Simone's affair, about the lies she told you, it could make a difference. Testify? In court? Maybe. Or just provide a deposition, a statement about the timeline, about what she told you, about the affair. It would help establish a pattern of deception. It would show the judge who these people really are. Another long pause. What's in it for me? The truth comes out. Simone faces consequences for what she did, and I hesitated. If you're planning to divorce her, any evidence I have about her affair, about her involvement in financial fraud, about her conspiracy to defraud me, it's yours, all of it. Financial fraud? The overbilling scheme. Simone was part of it. The Bar Association is investigating her too. She's going to lose her job, David. Possibly her license. Everything. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. Processing. Calculating. Send me everything you have, he said finally. Every message, every photo, every piece of evidence. I want to see it all. Are you sure? Some of it is. I'm sure. I need to know the full extent of what she did, what they both did. Okay, I'll send it tonight. Mrs. Thompson, Keisha, thank you for telling me. I know it wasn't easy. You deserve to know. After we hung up, I sat in the dark living room and thought about the chain reaction I just set in motion. Marcus's career destroyed, Simone's marriage ending, 2 families shattered, multiple lives irreparably changed. And I felt no guilt. They'd done this, not me. They'd made their choices, told their lies, hurt the people who loved them. All I'd done was shine a light on the truth. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Diane. Rebecca Cho just filed a motion to dismiss our asset freeze, claiming you're acting in bad faith. The hearing tomorrow is going to be contentious. Are you ready? I typed back. I'm ready. And I was. I was ready for the hearing, ready for the fight, ready for Marcus and Rebecca and Simone to realize they weren't dealing with a victim anymore. They wanted to paint me as unstable, weak, a helpless housewife, too comfortable and stagnant to fight back. Tomorrow, they'd learn the truth. The helpless housewife had teeth, and she was done playing nice. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Strong. I'd imagined something grand, dramatic, like the legal dramas on TV with their soaring ceilings and imposing judges' benches. Instead, it was utilitarian, fluorescent lights, beige walls, uncomfortable wooden benches. The kind of space designed for function, not theater. But the drama was real enough. Marcus sat across the aisle with Rebecca Cho, both of them in expensive suits, projecting confidence. Rebecca was exactly what I'd imagined. Sharp features, sharper suit, the kind of woman who'd built a career on being ruthless. She leaned over to whisper something to Marcus, and he nodded, his jaw tight. He still hadn't looked at me. Simone wasn't there. Of course she wasn't. This wasn't her fight yet. But I knew where she was. David had texted me this morning. Served her with divorce papers at 6 a.m. She's at her mother's house, crying. Don't feel bad for her. I didn't. Diane sat beside me, immaculate in a navy suit, her briefcase open on the table in front of us. She'd arranged her documents with precision, evidence stacked in neat piles, tabs color-coded, everything organized for maximum impact. Remember, she murmured as we waited for the judge. Let me do the talking. Don't react to anything Rebecca says, no matter how inflammatory. The angrier they try to make you, the calmer you need to be. I nodded. My hands were folded in my lap, steady. I'd barely slept, but I felt sharp, focused, ready. The bailiff announced Judge Patricia Winters, and we all stood. Judge Winters was in her 60s, black, with silver-streaked hair and eyes that had seen every divorce tactic in the book. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and surveyed us with the expression of someone profoundly tired of people's nonsense. All right, she said, her voice brooking no drama. Motion to freeze marital assets pending divorce proceedings. Miss Morrison, you filed the motion. Make your case. Diane stood, and I watched her transform. Gone was the conversational warmth from our meetings. This was the Diane Morrison who'd earned her reputation. Your Honor, we're seeking to freeze all marital assets because there is substantial evidence that Mr. Thompson has been systematically hiding and dissipating marital funds in preparation for divorce. Over the past 8 months, Mr. Thompson has transferred over $40,000 from joint accounts into a personal savings account that Mrs. Thompson only discovered after he announced his intention to divorce. Rebecca shot to her feet. Your Honor, those transfers were for legitimate expenses. Miss Cho, you'll have your turn. Judge Winters' voice was ice. Sit down. Rebecca sat, her face flushed. Diane continued smoothly. Additionally, Mr. Thompson took out a $50,000 personal loan 6 months ago, using the marital home as collateral, a home that is solely in Mrs. Thompson's name, inherited from her mother. Mr. Thompson forged Mrs. Thompson's signature on the loan documents. That got the judge's attention. Her eyebrows rose. Forged? Yes, Your Honor. We have handwriting analysis confirming it, as well as testimony from Mrs. Thompson that she never signed or consented to any such loan. Diane pulled out a document. Furthermore, a substantial portion of that loan money was spent on gifts and travel for Mr. Thompson's extramarital affair partner, including jewelry purchases and a weekend trip to Charleston. Judge Winters looked at Marcus, who had finally gone pale. Is this true, Mr. Thompson? He stood slowly. Your Honor, I can explain. That's not what I asked. Did you or did you not take out a loan using property that doesn't belong to you? Forge your wife's signature and spend the money on another woman? The silence stretched. The loan was meant to be temporary. I was going to pay it back. That's a yes, then. Judge Winters made a note. Continue, Miss Morrison. Your Honor, we believe Mr. Thompson has been planning this divorce for months while actively hiding assets and defrauding his wife. We're also aware that Mr. Thompson is currently under investigation by the State Bar Association for billing irregularities and fraud. Objection. Rebecca was on her feet again. That investigation is unrelated to these proceedings and hasn't resulted in any charges. But it speaks to a pattern of financial dishonesty, Diane cut in. Mr. Thompson has demonstrated a willingness to lie, cheat, and steal when it suits his purposes. Without this asset freeze, we have every reason to believe he'll continue hiding money and liquidating assets to avoid his obligations to Mrs. Thompson and their minor child. Judge Winters turned to Rebecca. Your turn, Miss Cho, and it better be good. Rebecca stood, smoothing her jacket. Your Honor, my client is a respected attorney who's built a successful career over 15 years. He's never been in legal trouble before this baseless Bar Association investigation, which I should note, appears to have been triggered by a vindictive complaint from Mrs. Thompson herself. Do you have proof of that? Judge Winters asked. It's the only logical explanation. The complaint was filed days after Mr. Thompson announced his intention to divorce. That's not proof. That's speculation. Next point. Rebecca's jaw tightened. Your Honor, Mr. Thompson has a right to access his own money. This asset freeze would prevent him from paying his bills, his attorney's fees, his living expenses. He should have thought of that before he forged his wife's signature and spent $50,000 on his girlfriend. Judge Winters looked down at her notes. Anything else? Mrs. Thompson is acting in bad faith, Rebecca pressed. She's using the legal system as a weapon to punish my client for ending an unhappy marriage. She hired one of the most expensive divorce attorneys in the state. Clearly, she's not the helpless victim she's pretending to be. She has resources. She hired an attorney to protect herself from a man who is actively stealing from her. Judge Winters leaned back in her chair. Miss Cho, I've been doing this for 23 years. I've seen every trick in the divorce playbook. And you know what the biggest red flag is? A spouse who starts hiding money right before announcing they want a divorce. It shows premeditation. It shows bad faith. And it tells me that without intervention, that spouse is going to disappear every asset they can get their hands on. Miss Cho, I'm granting the motion. Judge Winters picked up her gavel. All marital assets are frozen effective immediately. Mr. Thompson, you'll have access to funds for reasonable living expenses, rent, utilities, food. But any expenditure over $500 requires court approval. Miss Morrison, draft an order and have it to my clerk by end of business today. The gavel came down. Marcus looked sick. I felt the first real breath I'd taken in days. Furthermore, Judge Winters continued, I'm ordering a forensic accounting of all marital assets going back 2 years. Mr. Thompson, you'll provide complete documentation of all bank accounts, credit cards, investments, and other financial holdings within 10 days. If you fail to comply fully and truthfully, you'll be held in contempt. Your Honor, that's excessive, Rebecca started. Miss Cho, what's excessive is forging your spouse's signature to take out a loan on her house. What's excessive is hiding $40,000 while your wife raises your child. What's excessive is spending marital money on your affair partner. This court doesn't look kindly on financial fraud, regardless of how expensive your suit is. Judge Winters gathered her papers. Anything else? Diane stood. Your Honor, we'd also like to request temporary custody arrangements, given Mr. Thompson's current instability, unemployed, pending a bar investigation, no stable residence. We believe Mrs. Thompson should have primary physical custody with supervised visitation for Mr. Thompson. Now wait just a minute. Marcus was on his feet. I have every right to see my daughter. And you will see her. With supervision. Judge Winters looked at him over her glasses. Mr. Thompson, you brought your mistress to Christmas dinner with your 7-year-old daughter present. You announced your intention to divorce in front of that child. You've demonstrated profoundly poor judgment when it comes to protecting your daughter's emotional well-being. Until I'm convinced you've got your priorities straight, visitation will be supervised. 2 afternoons a week, 4 hours each, at a facility of the court's choosing. That's not fair. What's not fair is making your child witness the destruction of her family because you couldn't keep your pants zipped. Judge Winters stood. We're done here. Miss Morrison, I'll expect that order by 5 o'clock. The gavel came down again. Final and absolute. As the judge left, I felt Diane's hand on my arm. Breathe, she murmured. We won. Across the aisle, Rebecca was gathering her papers with sharp, angry movements. Marcus sat frozen, staring at nothing. Then he looked at me. Finally looked at me. And I saw it in his eyes, the moment he understood. This wasn't the woman he'd married, not the one who'd made his favorite meals and packed his lunches and maintained his home while he built his career. That woman was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned to fight back, someone who'd won. Keisha, his voice was hoarse. Can we talk? Please? No, I said simply, and stood to leave. This is insane. You can't take everything from me. My career, my money, my daughter. I didn't take anything. I turned to face him fully. You gave it away. You chose Simone over your family. You chose fraud over ethics. You chose lies over truth. These are consequences, Marcus. Not punishment, consequences. She turned you into this, he said, pointing at Diane. You were never vindictive before. This isn't you. You're right. I picked up my purse. The old me would have cried and begged and tried to fix things, would have blamed myself for not being enough, would have let you walk away with half of everything while I wondered what I did wrong. I looked him straight in the eye. But that woman died on Christmas Eve. When you brought your mistress into my home, when you humiliated me in front of our daughter, when I realized you were planning to destroy me, you killed her, Marcus, and you're going to have to live with who's left. I walked out of the courtroom with Diane, leaving Marcus and Rebecca to their furious whispered argument. Outside, in the harsh winter sunlight, I finally let myself feel it. Relief, satisfaction, victory. That was perfect, Diane said. Judge Winters ate him alive. The asset freeze, the supervised visitation, the forensic accounting. We couldn't have asked for better. What happens now? Now, we wait for the forensic accountant to find every penny he hid. We build the divorce case, and we watch the Bar Association investigation play out. She smiled. Oh, and I got a call this morning from David Chen's attorney. He's filing for divorce from Simone, citing adultery. He's also willing to testify in your case about the affair if needed. Does Simone know yet about the bar investigation suspension? She found out this morning, along with the divorce papers. I hear she's not handling it well. I thought about that, about Simone in her perfect dress, her perfect makeup, her perfect confidence, about how she'd sat on my couch and made my daughter laugh and mocked me in text messages for giving up my career. About how she was now losing everything, her marriage, her job, her future. And I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just cold certainty that justice, however messy, was being served. 6 weeks later, the forensic accountant's report came back, and it was worse than I'd imagined. Marcus hadn't just hidden $40,000. Over the course of 18 months, he'd siphoned off nearly $90,000 from our investments and joint accounts. Small amounts at first, growing bolder over time. Money that should have been building our future, securing our daughter's education, keeping us stable. He'd spent it on Simone, on gifts, trips, fancy dinners, on a down payment for an apartment he'd been planning to move into with her, on a ring, engagement ring, hidden in his office desk drawer. He'd been planning to marry her before he'd even divorced me. The Bar Association investigation concluded 8 weeks after it started. The result? Marcus Thompson and Simone Chen had engaged in systematic billing fraud, totaling over $130,000 across multiple clients. Both were disbarred. The law firm was required to make restitution to clients and fired them both publicly to protect the firm's reputation. Criminal charges were pending. Simone's divorce from David was finalized 10 weeks after he filed. He got the house, the cars, and a reputation for being the sympathetic victim. She got nothing but legal bills and a ruined reputation. Marcus's divorce from me took 4 months total. In the final settlement, I got the house, my mother's house that he tried to steal. I got primary custody of Zara, with Marcus allowed supervised visitation that would transition to unsupervised only after he completed parenting classes and maintained stable employment for 6 months. I got 70% of all remaining assets after the forensic accountant tracked down everything he'd hidden. I got alimony for 5 years, long enough to go back to school, restart my career, build something new. And I got something else, something more valuable than money. I got myself back. 1 year later, it was Christmas Eve again, but this time everything was different. The house still smelled like cinnamon and cloves. The tree still glittered in the corner, Zara's handmade ornaments hanging at eye level. I'd still spent the day cooking, honey-glazed ham, my grandmother's mac and cheese, all the dishes that made this house feel like home. But the people at my table had changed. Zara was 8 now, gap-toothed smile replaced by incoming adult teeth that made her look suddenly older. She was laughing at something my sister said, her eyes bright with the uncomplicated joy of a child who'd weathered a storm and come out on the other side. My sister was there, and her husband, my cousin Jennifer and her kids, David Chen, surprisingly, who'd become an unlikely friend through our shared experience of betrayal. He'd brought wine and his own sense of hard-won peace. And there was someone else, Michael, a man I'd met at the community college where I'd enrolled to finish my degree. A professor, kind-eyed and patient, who'd asked me to coffee after class one day and somehow understood that I needed to move slowly. That trust was something I was still learning to rebuild. He was carving the ham, making Zara giggle with terrible jokes, fitting into my life in a way that felt easy, natural, like he belonged here not because he'd forced his way in, but because there was room for him. "Mom," Zara said, pulling at my sleeve, "are you okay? You look like you're going to cry." "Happy tears, baby." I kissed the top of her head. "Just happy tears." The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Marcus standing on my porch, dressed in a coat that had seen better days, holding a racked present. He looked tired, older. The past year had aged him. "I know I'm not supposed to be here," he said quickly. "I know it's not my day with Zara, but I wanted to drop off her Christmas present." And I wanted to say, he trailed off, looking past me into the house, at the warm lights, the laughter, the family gathered around my table, at the life that continued without him. "Say what?" I asked, not unkindly. "I'm sorry." The words came out rough. "For all of it, for what I did to you, to Zara, for being so fucking stupid that I destroyed everything for something that meant nothing." Simone meant nothing? Simone was a fantasy, an escape from real life, from real responsibility, from a marriage that required work. He met my eyes. "You and Zara, you were real. You were my life. And I threw it away. I took the present from his hands. I forgive you, I said, and meant it. Not because he deserved forgiveness, but because I deserved peace. But that doesn't mean I'll forget. And it doesn't mean you get to come back. I know, he nodded. I know, I hope someday Zara can forgive me too. She will. She's a kind kid, kinder than either of us deserves. I stepped back toward my door. But you need to earn that forgiveness, Marcus. You need to show up for her. Be present. Be honest. Be the father she needs, not the one who's convenient for you. I'm trying, his voice cracked. I got a job, not law. I can never practice again. But I'm teaching business classes at a vocational school. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work. And I'm in therapy, trying to figure out how I became the kind of man who could hurt the people he loved. That's good, I said. That's a start. Are you happy? He asked it suddenly, desperately. I know I don't have a right to ask, but are you happy now? I looked back at my dining room, at my daughter laughing, at my family gathered together, at the man who was patient and kind and willing to wait until I was ready, at the life I'd built from the ruins of everything Marcus had destroyed. Yes, I said, I am. He nodded, blinking rapidly. Good, that's good. You deserve to be happy. He turned to leave, then paused. Simone and I broke up. 2 months after the divorce was final. Turns out we didn't have much in common once we couldn't sneak around anymore. Once it was just reality. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? He smiled sadly. You have every right to be glad I'm miserable. I'm not glad you're miserable, but I'm not sorry for my part in it either. I held his gaze. You made choices, Marcus. Adult choices with adult consequences. The fact that those consequences hurt doesn't make them unjust. I know. He started down the porch steps, then turned back one more time. For what it's worth, watching you this past year, watching you go back to school and rebuild your life and become even stronger than you were, I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to be, but I am. I didn't respond, just watched him walk to his car, a man diminished by his own choices, living with the wreckage of what he'd destroyed. I closed the door and went back to my table, to my family, to my life. Who was that, Mommy? Zara asked. Your father. He dropped off your Christmas present. Is he going to stay? No, baby. This is our home, our Christmas, our family. I pulled her close, but he loves you and he's trying to be better. And someday, maybe you'll want to spend more time with him. That'll be your choice. She nodded, processing this with the resilience of children who'd learned that families could take many shapes, that love could be complicated, that life moved forward even after it broke apart. Later, after dinner was cleared and dessert was served, after Zara opened her presents and everyone sang carols around the piano, I stood in my kitchen alone for a moment. The same kitchen where, 1 year ago, I'd stood with ham grease under my fingernails and hope in my heart, believing I was building something beautiful with a man who'd already decided to tear it down. Everything looked the same. The same counters, the same cabinets, the same view out the window. But I was different, stronger, smarter, more whole than I'd been even before Marcus broke me, because here's what I'd learned in the wreckage of my marriage. Being comfortable isn't the same as being weak. Being kind isn't the same as being naive. And being underestimated is the greatest gift your enemies can give you. Marcus had looked at me and seen someone too soft to fight back, too comfortable to be dangerous, too stagnant to evolve. He'd forgotten that water seems soft and comfortable too, until it carves through stone. My phone buzzed, a text from Diane. Merry Christmas. How's the first one in your new life? I typed back, perfect, and it was. Not because everything was easy. Not because the pain of betrayal had disappeared. Not because I'd magically healed from having my life shattered. But because I'd survived. More than survived. I'd taken the broken pieces and built something new. Something stronger. Something mine. I'd learned that revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, strategic, patient. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be destroyed, is living well, is thriving, is showing up for yourself and your daughter and your life with the same energy you used to pour into someone who didn't deserve it, is becoming the woman they never expected you to be. I raised my glass of wine in a silent toast to the old Keisha, the one who died on Christmas Eve a year ago, the one who'd been comfortable and kind and believed in the goodness of the man she married. She'd been beautiful in her way, but she was gone. In her place was someone harder, wiser, more careful with her trust, but also more sure of herself, more certain of her worth, more aware of her own strength. And as I stood in my kitchen, my mother's kitchen, in my mother's house, surrounded by the family I'd chosen and the life I'd rebuilt, I realized something. I didn't miss the woman I used to be. This version was better.